and welcome to Blockbuster Bums. Kick back your recliner, crack open a beer, and let's talk movies. And today's movie is Spectre, the 25th movie in the James Bond series and the fourth movie in the Daniel Craig portion of the Bond series. It came out in 2015, and this is the second to last Bond film, at least as of now, that is out as of now. We don't even have a new Bond, so Daniel Craig is done, but we'll see going forward. Anyway, Ray, do you have a synopsis for us?
I definitely do. And the synopsis goes like this. A cryptic message from the past leads James Bond to Mexico City and Rome, where he meets the beautiful widow of an infamous criminal. After infiltrating a secret meeting, 007 uncovers the existence of the sinister organization Spectre. Needing the help of the daughter of an old nemesis, he embarks on a mission to find her. As Bond ventures towards the heart of Spectre, he discovers a chilling connection between himself and the enemy he seeks.
All right, thank you, Ray. All right, well, I guess we can go around the room and talk about our reactions right now. Tom, what was your initial reaction to rewatching Spectre?
Honestly, I enjoyed it more the second time around after watching the Craig series. Again, the second time around from start to finish, I did leave with a better appreciation for the movie, in all honesty. I know, the first time, a lot of my criticism was that, I didn't like the pace of it. I didn't really enjoy some of, the drawn-out sequences, but it made more sense, and it didn't stick out as much this time around, I guess, after watching the other ones. I like the build-up from it.
Fair enough. Barry, what was your thoughts on watching it for the first time?
Yeah, I think this movie kind of gets some bad press, from what I gather. Or maybe it's just kind of a 50-50. People love it or hate it. I thought it was pretty good. There were parts of it that I thought were peculiar, like odd stuff with the Blofeld character and things, in my opinion. But overall, I thought it was an enjoyable movie.
Cool. Ray, what were your thoughts on your rewatch of Spectre?
I didn't have any bad when I first watched it, and I guess I'm kind of like Tom. I had a better appreciation for it the second time around. There was a couple things. Well, one thing, the small world of the spy, where we'll get into the daughter and the old enemy kind of connection thing going on. I thought that was kind of weird, but I love the backdrop locations, Day of the Dead situation in the opening sequence. That was I love that shit. And then as he goes through the different, the cinematography was just great. I just love that shit. But
I did appreciate it in this one. Or even you're talking about in Mexico,
oh man,
I've seen a lot of little it almost you can pick out homages to other Bonds, because there's little funny stuff that you see Craig doing in this one that kind of looks like Roger Moore could have done that just as easily. Everything one where when he drops down when the building collapses and he just fixes his tie.
Oh
and
yeah.
just strolls out. I could see Roger Moore pulling that move and everything, and just playing it up and hamming to the camera and doing strolling.
Yeah.
It's I like that adaptation and all that. You can see him coming into his Bond in this one, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I had similar thoughts to most of you guys. I did like the movie more than I think the original time I watched it. I didn't hate it the first time I originally watched it, but I wasn't a big fan. I liked it a little bit more. I do really like some of the actors and actresses in this movie. I really, really am a fan of Christoph Waltz. So I thought him being Blofeld was promising, and I felt like he held up his end of the bargain. I thought he did a good job. I do like Ralph Fiennes' character as them. I'm a fan of that as well.
Oh yeah.
And Javier Bardem does a good job. Even Batista does a pretty good job. So I liked some of the acting and the actors as far as that goes. And I felt like the only disappointing thing is with this movie is the potential was out of this world with this movie, and I just feel like they didn't meet it. And not that it was a bad movie. That's not what I'm trying to say. I just mean it could have been better because of what they had to work with.
Do you think they held back because there was going to be another one made?
It could be because the next one is kind of a continuation, kind of the storyline. But yeah, I mean, it is 2.5 hours long. They did try and fit a bunch in, but I felt like Spectre could have been a couple or even 3 movies into itself.
I mean, yeah.
I think they rushed it. Is what I
Yeah.
guess more of what I'm trying to get at than anything.
But that was more like a Daniel Craig drama situation, wasn't
Yes,
it? Yeah.
yes. He had held out for a few years between Skyfall and this one, saying he wasn't going to make another one, and then he made this one and held out for even longer for the next one, and they had to throw an obscene amount of money at him to get him to do it. So,
I mean,
yeah,
like I said, I don't doubt. Yeah, they could have done more, but I would like to be honest. I would have liked to have seen this done just as a trilogy
yeah,
type thing, and like I know, like I said, just because of how many like old James Bond movies, like he back and
He
forth with
does.
Spectre and stuff. Like, yeah, we know the totality. You could have done so much with it, but would it have just came across clunky if you threw it all even in a 2-hour movie? Like, I feel like you have to whittle down like for a fresh audience with the past movies as a trilogy. What makes the most sense? And I really like what they did. It's like the way they introduced Blofeld, like I said, the little Roger Moore callbacks, like, or even what they did with Batista's character, callback to like Jaws, obviously. Like, I mean, it was. I think it was well done. I think it was underrated, but only because like you wouldn't have previous knowledge of like the stuff to find in this one.
mm-hmm.
Like if you've seen all the Bonds as we have, I guess to say, we can see that and point to it in excitement and say like that's what this is. That's what this is from. I know where you got that idea. Like I seen it when it was fresh. And like here's Craig's modern adaptation to it.
And not just the callbacks to the old old Bond movies, but there's a ton of callbacks to all the other Craig movies.
Yeah.
He references all of them, every single one of them
But
during the course of this
but
movie.
that's why I like this series because, like I said, it is his series is one continuous story. So I think it like I liked if it would have just cut off at the trilogy because then it would have just. I think it could have went down as like a good trilogy if you look at it from that perspective
Yeah.
of like, hey, here's the Craig trilogy and the James Bond saga.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's talk about the movie itself. Well, the opening scene is, as Ray mentioned earlier, is in Mexico City, where a lot of craziness happens. He blows up an entire building. He gets in a chase and then throws a guy out of a helicopter in the middle of like a Mardi Gras type situation.
That was like parade, but what that was is like the way the helicopter blades were going. Like I said, when Ray talked about the cinematography, that shot was great. But it was once again a callback to like we've seen that before.
The Blofeld drop.
When
Yeah.
he actually like not just the drop, but remember when the I think it was Roger Moore one when they turned the blades down and they actually went toward the crowd.
Oh yeah.
And everything and
Yeah.
use the helicopter as a weapon. That's what I thought when I saw this scene. I was like, I know what this callback is from. Like right from the start, I thought that was a good one because, like I said, even when he like had to finally kill the damn pilot and everything and kick him out, like the fear was that innocents were like you're gonna be killed with the blade and all that, just like in that scene.
And that was like a big concern that I had. Like that, you got some big fucking balls to be trying this maneuver with all these people in this fucking Day of the Dead, and it's just like it's about to be Day of the Dead. You don't pull this off.
Oh, well, I was thinking through the whole thing. Bond's gonna get in so much trouble for this.
Yeah.
Like because there's just he's destroying everything. He's causing mayhem. Like you
Well,
said, he's putting so many innocent people in danger.
The explosion wasn't his fault. Like he was just gonna pull the trigger, and they turned and seen. They knew he was there. Like,
Well, he did, but kind of go back to what we talked
they
about
blew up the face of the
in one of the B sides, where it's like when you're this level of agent, like everything's your fault.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
if it goes wrong
was-
on your mission, it's your fault
Yeah.
because you're the man.
But
Like,
with this, what was he even supposed to be on that? Like, what did he get? He got his ass chewed out for something or
no, he
other
wasn't
on that.
supposed to be there. We didn't know that at the time.
Yeah,
but he
but
wasn't
that's what I
supposed to be
thought. So I
there.
was like, yeah,
so
so-
he gets chewed out for going rogue
Yeah.
and for all the chaos he caused.
That's what I thought. I was like, he wasn't even supposed to be there. But I love also the nonchalantness walking across the rooftops with the
Yeah.
gun, just
Well,
getting
that
ready,
and
just
even
look
the
at parade.
and even the smooth walk up to the elevator with that chick is just like,
Oh, yeah.
nonchalant, tracking this dude, and just like, I'll be back.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah.
What I liked, there was some very Bondness to it, like you said, the fixing his tie. There was, like you said, he gets a woman up to his room, and you're like, oh, this is a very Bond move. But then he's like, oh, I got to do something. I'll be back in a minute, and like goes out the window to kill that guy, and you're like, that was a pretty cool Bond thing. But in between those moments, it was very just like Mission Impossible action hero type crap, like explosions and chases and helicopter scenes and all this chaos ensuing. It wasn't very spy and espionage and stuff like that.
But I think that's what that was supposed to show there, because I think it was supposed to outline like, hey, you weren't supposed to be here, you didn't have our support, and that's why it came across like just chaotic. Like I think that's what like the underlining thing with the ass chewing as well. Like, hey, you didn't have permission. This is what it's like when you go rogue on your own. This kind of stuff happens. Like, I think that was the note they were trying to begin with.
Yeah, I think Bond's, particularly with the intro, which we find out later, he's after Sciarra, which was instructed to him by M in the video she left.
The old M, yeah.
Yeah, the old M, thank you. So he's very much of, tunnel vision on this probably at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And the actions he takes, particularly once he gets on the helicopter, it's not your normal, hey, James Bond is in the middle of this and some stuff went sideways and it's not on him. He created the terrible situations in many ways, more so than usual. He endangered thousands of lives. He jumps onto a helicopter that's flying, and one of the first things he does is try to knock out the pilot. What?
Yeah.
This is not a good decision. And it just, the entirety of that, while it was awesome and it looked great, the cinematography was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And whatever the effects they used were awesome. Bond really was to blame for endangering all of those people.
Well, I think, we go through a decent portion of this movie without knowing why he's doing what he's doing. Like, before the M video is revealed, whichever you one of you guys said that M has sent him on this mission secret with a video. Before we see the M video, we really don't know what he's going through or why he's doing it, but he comes across desperate. And we all know desperation breeds bad decisions. I mean, it really does. But he comes across desperate and almost unhinged at times, where he's just like, I've got to get this done no matter what. Fuck MI6, fuck my friends. I'm going to do what I got to do. Which, don't get me wrong, we've kind of seen that in Bond before. We saw it with Dalton in License to Kill, where he's just like, you know what, I'm going to get revenge regardless of whether anybody helps me or not. But it's not always a great look for Bond, because you're supposed to be the guy that's in control and has everything in hand all the time. That's what, the License to Kill and being a 00 agent is. And he doesn't come across that way, at least for the first portion of this movie. Well, before we get too far away from the beginning, though, anybody a fan of the song?
No.
Not the right movie for the song.
No.
Writings on the Wall. I don't.
Yeah, I was not a fan of the song either.
I mean, if it was by itself, I could vibe to it, but it's not a Bond.
I wanted to punch that singer in the face.
Oh, Sam. What was that?
The kisser.
What was that dude's name? Sam Smith or something?
Yes, I believe that's
Yeah.
right. Now, the song's not for me, but, I can understand some people like it. I love a good James Bond theme song, and this one just didn't hit for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was flat.
I agree. I was not. I just have it written down.
It was
I'm
like
not a fan of the song.
It's like it slowly fell off after Chris Cornell and Casino Royale.
Yeah, honestly, that was a pleasant surprise. I forgot all about him doing the intro.
Yeah.
Like, I heard the voice at first, and I was like, no shit. Like, I was like, all right, this gonna be good. Like,
Not only that, but we did get. For the first time, Ralph Fiennes returns as M. This is our first full movie with him as M.
Yeah.
The Q returns and Moneypenny returns. They all return, which I feel like is nice, getting that continuity. But we got our first reference to another 00 agent in quite some time, unless I'm forgetting. I was really trying to rack my... Because they talk about 009 It's at one point, and I'm like, we have not had a reference to another double O in quite some time that I can remember.
See, I can't remember because I must have dazed off during the 009 part because I must have been just so focused on this new fucking C guy, this fucking shifty security guy the whole time because he kind of pissed me off. But
Oh, see, yeah, yeah, he rubbed you wrong right from the beginning.
Yeah, you
That's for sure.
you thought you considered him maybe being a bad guy the very first scene you saw him.
oh yeah,
Like they did not. If they were trying to, they didn't do a good job of disguising him as trying to fit in at MI6. Like,
Yeah, I have to imagine that they probably were just here. This guy's a dirtball. They're
Yeah.
just being
just
upfront
play,
about
play
it.
that role.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
like just do the thing.
yeah. Go ahead and hate him. Yeah, from the get go.
the last time I could remember off the top of my head, and I could be missing one, them referencing another double O was right at the beginning of Brosnan.
oh yeah.
Definitely a thing in GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Trevelyan was
Yes.
006, I
Yeah.
think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Might be right.
Yeah, I got nothing to argue. I was like, I know it didn't happen in the Craig series up till now,
Yeah.
so like I can at least
And
say
Moore
that.
didn't
And
have nothing right.
I'll say I think during Moore and the original
Connery.
Connery, thank you, couldn't think of his name. I thought we got references to the other double O's pretty consistently through those two.
I think that but I think that was their way of trying to make it seem this like they are a more global organization and everything, on par with the CIA and all. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because especially at that time, I doubt a lot of Americans knew what MI6 like was like the equivalent of our CIA. Like,
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Speaking of returns, like I think Ray mentioned it earlier, Mr. White returns from Quantum of Solace.
Yeah.
And he returns in a, I don't know, I guess you could say a fairly big way. It's not just that you actually see him on screen and he has a very, I don't know, dramatic death on screen, but you also are introduced to his daughter and she plays a large role in the rest of the movie.
But see, that's another thing I had was that whole scene it's very convenient the segue to another situation that led Bond to Spectre. It wasn't like a complex thing. It was just, oh, my daughter's here. Then we have a face turn for Bond, like, oh yeah, I'll take care of your daughter. It's just like, what are we doing now? And it's kind of irritated me a little bit.
So you don't think that was just a spy move where he was just like, I'm telling you what you want to hear to get the information from you in the moment?
I mean, maybe, but the way he sold it, I took it as he was gonna go do it for real.
Well, I mean, he did kind of go do it for real. He repeatedly, went out of his way to protect her. So he did kind of follow through on his promise.
Yeah, I think he very much did. So, yeah, the Mr. White thing's kind of interesting. This Craig series, the other Bonds for all those years never really tried to do a continuity thing.
Yeah.
They may have a callback, but they weren't trying to do the continuation. And this one does try to do it. Sometimes it seems like it makes more sense than others.
Yeah.
It's nice to see the Mr. White character.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting that he was led to Mr. White. I think they referred to him as like the Pale Knight or something.
King.
He was part of the whole
Pale
scheme
King.
or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find out, of course, that he's been poisoned and he's dying. And he requests of Bond, like you guys were talking about, take care of my daughter ultimately. And then he offs himself. I guess it's a nice way to introduce us to the love interest. It's kind of an interesting dynamic.
Well, what did you think of White kills himself, and then Bond leaves, and then Batista's character, which is Mr. Hinks, he walks in, and the whole conversation and everything is on video, so he just goes and watches the video and knows exactly what's going on.
Oh yeah, but they already knew because later on we see that Blofeld had live feed to that anyway. So Blofeld even seen Bond do it and seen White off himself.
No, he did, but like...
But that means Batista knew already. Like, it was just one of those things to where that just showed me, like I said, after we seen the footage there, everything later on, it just showed like the real reach that he had.
Oh, he had huge reach. I'm not downplaying
But-
Spectre.
but
I
that's
just feel
what I
like it
mean.
would be very because they made sure and show you that Bond knew the camera was there. So
Yeah.
why didn't they not show Bond making an effort to erase the footage? So like if anybody did come looking for Mr. White, they wouldn't know exactly where Bond was going and what he was doing.
Yeah.
I doubt that point. He just didn't care. I think it was about just leaving. He just probably knew he. I just took it as he knew he was being watched, and also like fuck it, and just left. Like, because,
Yeah,
like
I mean,
said,
it obviously it's kind of ambiguous what he was thinking. Like, did he just think like this is Mr. White's private security, and I'm not worried about it, or
yeah, because if it's just
what else would he think?
If it's just a closed circuit feed and you're looking at it and everything, yeah, it's
Right.
like if it's the man that just killed himself, it's like all right. Or if you're not in the basement, who cares if it's seen? Like, and this
Yeah.
man's dead, and I just left. Like, so, and like I said, Batista's character, it doesn't matter. He's not going to look at that. He's not going to look at that footage because Batista's character knows that Spectre's going to tell him what happened and where and all.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter to Batista either. Like,
But they make it look like it does at least because they make him look up at the camera and then he smiles and goes down the stairs
But
to
that-
where you think he's gonna watch the footage at least.
well, and he might have just seen it there and all that. But let's be honest, we know after we know later, like Spectre would have just told him anyway.
Yeah. Oh, it just seems sloppy.
This is one of the, it reminded me very much of a 1970s James Bond movie, which I like because there's a lot going on. Not all of it really makes sense immediately to you, and then a lot of it feels sloppy is the right word, I think.
Like I said, you got to piece the stuff together.
Yeah,
and
No,
everything.
and maybe it's just maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it all made perfect sense all the time and it perfectly rational and reasonable, and I'm just dumb. But it felt
I don't think that, and I wasn't meaning the movie was sloppy. That's what I was
Right.
trying to say. I was trying to say it was sloppy of Bond to leave that footage behind. That's all I was trying to say. It was just a sloppy move. If you're the greatest spy to ever live, you
Right.
leave videos of yourself and what in your plans.
and that's
Like,
what yeah, and I
but
think we
I-
both kind of mean that
But I
we
think
mean it differently, but kind of in the same. Like the I guess the screenplay was a little sloppy in that they didn't tie up loose ends, or like this character wouldn't do that.
or
Things like
you
that.
just said in the beginning, it still could play up to his desperation.
yeah.
I'm like,
That's true,
like-
too,
Like
yeah.
you said, like you're sloppy. Like you said, stressed out, loose end, left it. Like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
you got the ring, you got her information, you got to go find the chick. Like,
And like, then he shows up there
yeah.
to meet Madeline Swan, and he's like acting like she's a therapist, right? A therapist,
Yeah,
psychiatrist.
He pretends he's going to be
Something.
a patient and all.
He
He's a
pretends-
psychiatrist who I believe works at the top of a mountain, right?
Yeah, she. By the way, was I the only one that thought, "Wow, that's the same place that they went
On Her Majesty's
on Her Majesty's Secret
Yeah,
Service"?
had that
no,
vibe to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of magic. There are a lot of callbacks in this.
Yes.
movie.
Yeah, like I think that's why.
Which was nice.
yeah.
But she kicks him out of the office, and he's just sitting at the bar staring at her like he's like a weirdo, creepo.
Yeah.
And then,
'Cause
of course,
he knows they're behind him.
then they come to, or then Q shows up out of nowhere, and Q is essentially there to beg him to come back before they all get fired. Because
Yeah.
because Q's going to get in as much trouble as Bond is. Because I guess we skipped over that. Bond is supposed to be not leave London. He's essentially been put on suspension by M.
Oh yeah.
And Q helps him escape, and Q is covering for him, and essentially M is on to Q, and Q comes there to beg him to come back because he's like, you're not just going to get yourself in trouble, you're going to get me in trouble. And then while they're having the conversation, Hanks walks in and takes Swan right in front of him, like without Bond even noticing.
Well, I mean, at that point when Bond steals your car out of your workshop, I mean, you got to start covering your ass.
Yeah, but he also like has the tracker in Bond. He's been refusing to tell M.
Well, yeah, that
the
too.
truth, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not refusing to tell him. He's just not telling him the truth about where Bond is. Because Bond's clear across the world, and he keeps telling him that he's in a bar in some neighborhood in London.
Liverpool. Yeah.
Because then there was the incident, and they're like, he actually, he can be up and running in like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something like that. Like, there'll be a lag. Like,
Yeah. But yeah, again, not very Bondish when Hinks takes Swan and like in a room away with it's clear, by the way, a clear glass wall between
Yeah.
them, and he takes her without Bond even noticing while he's talking. He's so engrossed in the conversation with Q.
Well,
Like-
I think he was waiting. He was waiting for those two fools in the sweater vest to like act. Like
Yeah,
that was ridiculous. Yeah, like because it was like it was a really nice resort and everything. Like Q orders that weird little grass drink and everything. Like yeah,
No alcohol. How awful.
yeah, because he even ordered like the classic, and I'm like, nope. You know, like oh fuck, like
But then, correct me if I'm wrong, which leads us to a chase scene. But I think I was trying to rack my brain on this one too. I think this is the first chase scene of its kind in a Bond movie, where Bond is chasing a car in a plane. Is that not a first?
are we counting the helicopter as an equivalent?
No, it's a plane.
Okay, then I.
You said Bond chases a car in a plane?
Because Mr. Hanks and his crew are in SUVs
Yeah, there
going
we go.
down the hill,
'Cause
down
then-
the mountain,
yeah.
and he's chasing them in that little plane.
Yeah, because then remember, Hinks like puts that out there and has that double-barreled hand cannon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shoots holes inside
Yeah,
of it.
just like that thing had like he's just one arm of that motherfucker,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
blowing holes and everything inside of that plane.
Now, did that happen? Now, was that a part of Russia, or was that a flip-flop situation where he was getting chased by a plane?
Well, I think
in Russia he was getting chased by the helicopter, but I know he's chased people with those little helicopters before. I don't. think
he's had a lot of helicopter stuff.
Yeah, and
I
don't.
didn't, but I
They've
couldn't
not
think of
done
a
the
time.
plane chase, and here's why.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense. The plane, a plane,
Yeah.
you know, they made it fine, you know, whatever.
Mhm.
But you can't maintain a line with something on the ground for terribly long
Yes.
in a plane. There'd be a lot of circling back around and so forth. And there was some of that, and the scene was fine, but that's probably why that's not been done.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Fair enough. You're right. It doesn't make a ton of sense.
But not only that, that's also why then you look up at the cinematography. They narrowed the field of vision, brought the plane
Yeah.
down, basically ripped the wings off, and
Yeah.
is basically just like a canoe with skis. Is all it is. Like that's basically what they've done with it. It's like, all right, you can't compete with the firepower, so like we're gonna go to the ground, and you're just gonna be behind them.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and it was fun enough.
But okay, so
Yeah.
let me ask you this. Maybe I'm just forgetting, or maybe they don't explain it. I can't remember which. But where is Hinks through the whole thing where Bond actually gets Madeline and escapes with her? Because like he just appears to be gone.
oh, after that crash, remember it crashed, and you see him do like the hand twitch thing, like you see the villains do in the other.
So he's just laying there,
yeah, like after
and
the,
assumingly dead.
yeah, well, or at least
Okay.
just not because then we don't see him again until the train ride.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because they like another great comeback. Like,
But yeah, he does get Madeline Swan from the car chase scene. He actually overtakes them and gets her, but she's very, very ungrateful. She is not feeling Bond helping her escape. I think she'd rather be tortured and killed by Spectre, I guess.
Well, I
don't know.
mean, she was a bitch since like 5 minutes of her
Yeah.
appearance. So.
yeah. I mean, she was not a very. She hadn't been very nice.
it wasn't a warm welcome. But she even said like she hadn't seen or heard from her father in X amount of years and had no desire to. So it's like,
Well, not just that, but she doesn't really know what's going on. I mean,
Yeah.
she doesn't know Bond from a hole in the wall either. Like I could be
Yeah.
escaping one torture for another torture. Essentially, I guess it could be going through her head because she does know that she has information that is useful to bad people.
yeah,
So, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so then we go straight from there to doesn't she take Bond? No, Bond takes her to meet with somebody. Who do they meet with? Because Bond and whoever they meet. Oh, it's Q. He takes her to meet Q.
oh yeah,
And Q's like, "Who is this?" And he's like, "Oh, it's Madeline Swan." Blah blah blah. And then Swan tells them. That's the big reveal is because Americana or whatever. Americana's not a person; it's a place.
Oh yeah, L'American.
But yeah, American.
Yeah.
In like Tangier or someplace crazy like that.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So then she does end up taking Bond there, and they destroy a whole like suite of or apartment or whatever it is, and don't find anything for the longest time until Bond punches a hole in the wall because of a mouse.
Yeah, there she's acting like a drunken bitch. Like,
Yes, that's true too. She does that as well.
like,
Yeah, she has some struggles there, doesn't she?
Yes, she does. She seems to have some PTSD regarding that place.
But they
Um,
said they found the little room and everything. He found the little book and a bunch of the answers and all.
well, this is the big. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That's the big reveal. You put it together that every single movie in this series has presented you with a Spectre member,
Yeah.
but you just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
Like, what's the guy's name from Skyfall?
Is that green?
Green was Quantum of Solace. Yeah, it was like a Hispanic name. I can't remember it.
Oh,
though.
Silva.
Yeah,
No, Silva is from Skyfall.
Yeah.
And Green was Quantum. And then Le Chiffre was, of course, Casino Royale.
Yeah, Lashif. Yeah,
Oh, you okay?
yeah. So all those people are prior agents for. Do they say Spectre or do they just say for an organization? Do they tell you Spectre's name at this point?
I think they're being pretty open about the Spectre thing. I don't know if it's stated.
I don't know if
but-
it's stated, but we definitely see the insignia and the symbol everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
that-
see the signet a bunch of times, but
Yeah.
if you were watching this movie
I mean-
by itself, or even just the Craig movies by themselves, you wouldn't know the name Spectre, so it wouldn't leap out at you.
Yeah.
No.
We know it because we watched all the other movies.
Well, we know it just because of the symbol.
Yeah, the symbol told you, and you see the symbol on somebody's ring like the first 2 minutes of the movie, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're fidgeting with it and all.
But I don't think.
But like I said, but I like how it calls in, like I said, it calls back to all the movies that we have seen. So then it does make you think, and it's like, oh, this whole time I've been watching this organization. It's almost like you get the viewer along with it. Like that's why I like that reveal there.
I'm fine with it. I like the Bond standalone movie idea as it was. I think that they're trying too hard. And I think they'll move away from that probably moving forward, trying to just make a long narrative like that. Because like Silva from Skyfall, like there was never any notion that he would be involved with Spectre or some other organization. It was basically a revenge story, you know?
You're right. It's easy to tie Lashif in with this organization.
Yeah, you can do that.
And even Mr. White to an extent, because you see Mr. White kill Lashif and say, our organization says this and this. But then you kind of assume that organization is Quantum. But I guess now you know it was probably more Spectre
Yeah.
than Quantum.
Yeah.
You know.
And I get the idea, obviously even the imagery is their tentacles are in everything.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But, Silva, it just struck me in the moment when that's part of the presentation. I was like, Silva was revenge. It wasn't a bigger picture.
The only thing I could think of was, yes, Silva was in it for the revenge. I don't think he was in it because he wanted to be part of this larger picture. But if you leave MI6, or presumed dead from MI6, I guess is what his story was, you don't really have anything. So maybe he joined Spectre because he needed the financial backing to accomplish what he wanted to accomplish. I mean, he owned an entire island.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
And all the computer. I mean, his whole thing was computers. So he had a whole warehouse full of computer equipment he was using. Like somebody paid for that.
And someone had to pay for that facial reconstruction too.
Yeah.
So I'll buy it.
Yeah,
Good
Dr. Fauci.
explanation.
But he was. But I assume that he was only involved in all those things so that he could get back at him. He didn't want world domination or all these things that a lot of people want. He wanted to get back at him.
Yeah. Yeah. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Sort of.
Indeed.
I can see it working.
All right. You convinced me.
So then the two of them, and I mean the two of them as in Bond and Swan, decide to work together. Like in the moment they find out all this information, they're like, "Oh, we're going to work together, and we're going to take Spectre out, or at least Blofeld." I don't know if they know his name yet, though. They call him something else.
Going by a different name. This all of this stuff I thought was weird. He apparently, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, the story here is that, Bond's parents, of course, died in a climbing accident.
Yes.
And at some point, apparently, Bond was taken in by the Oberhausens or something like that. That's wrong, but something like that. And this was a man, at least, and his son. I don't know if there were any other family members. But presumably, so James Bond spent time with this father and his son for some extended period of time. I think a couple of years is what is stated.
Mm-hmm.
And the father takes to James Bond and is basically just good to him and teaches him a lot of skills, hunting and things of that nature. Skiing. And apparently this
Fucking
really
skiing.
ticked off the actual son,
Mm-hmm.
who is going by, I guess, his real name, which is Overholzen or something like that.
Yeah.
But also, this man is actually Blofeld.
Yes, he changes his name to Blofeld once he
Yes.
becomes a criminal or whatever.
But it also seems that James Bond has no idea that this guy is the guy that he knew from his childhood. Am I
Yeah.
wrong? It never feels like they know each other.
Well, he
Yeah.
does at a point when he's like pulling him in the room to torture Bond. He starts calling him by his real name and says, "Oh, you killed your father. He didn't die in an avalanche." And like he starts calling him on some of his shit, and they have a conversation right there. But yes, previous to that, Bond never lets on, if he does at all, that he knows who he is.
Yeah,
the
it just feels weird.
The
like,
only hint of it that you have is
presentation.
like the picture that you see in like the very beginning, and then the
Yes.
picture you see then there and everything, and then in the hotel room when they do show up to Spectre and they have their private suites, they each have that special picture and everything
Mm-hmm.
in each of their rooms.
So, but anyway, that leads them to the train, right? When they decide they're gonna go kill Blofeld and take out the organization, they end up getting on the train to go to that middle of nowhere stop.
Yeah.
And so this maybe just be interesting to me, maybe not to everybody else. But Bond pulls a gun out on the train because he wants to teach Swan how to use it.
Yeah.
Well, apparently she already knows how to use a gun. But he pulls out the gun, and I immediately looked at it and I was like, "Well, that's not a Walther." And he goes, "This is a SIG 226." Well, for those of you in this room, you just saw a SIG 365 a few minutes ago because I have it on my person. But like SIG is like the name in handguns at this point. Like they are the handgun of all handguns right now, and have been for a few years. So I'm not surprised in the fact of like, oh, he's carrying like one of the best guns in the market. But the fact that he's not carrying a Walther and he's like, oh, and he names it in the movie. I assume SIG paid for that,
Product placement.
But he was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, I have a SIG 226. And I'm like, it just threw me off. It threw me for such a loop. I put it in my notes.
But I
like,
think if I remember right, that was one of the big talking points when this movie came out, was that like he wasn't carrying the Walter anymore.
mm-hmm.
Like I think that if I remember right, that was something that people like.
Well,
like,
you
kinda
see it at
griped
one
about.
point during the movie. You see him with a Walther at one point in the movie. But at this point, he has the SIG, and then he ends up losing it. And that's when she ends up with it. And I don't know what he ends up using the rest of the movie. I didn't pay much attention after that. I don't think after
Grabbing
that.
guns off dead bodies. Like,
Yeah.
That's like it's. Like,
But while they're going through all this, they go to dinner, and they as in Swan and Bond still. And Hinks shows up and just starts beating the holy shit out of Bond.
I loved it.
Bond's dead if it was not for Swan.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Like
for sure.
Hinks kicks the crap out of him in this fight, and then Swan ends up shooting him in the shoulder,
Yeah.
and then Bond's able to throw him off the train.
Yeah, like wrap the like chain around him and like kick the. But I even like how that was like the one line Batista had, just shit. Like,
Yeah,
like,
the only word he said the whole movie, and it was I didn't mind the fight scene. It was another quality train fight
yeah.
scene.
Like I said, it was a good modern take on the fight scene, and I like how that was the last that we've seen of Batista's character though too.
Mm-hmm.
Like because it was one of those things like it didn't make him seem like invincible, even though he'd already like. Bond avoided him in the Lambo chase earlier and all that when they first revealed Blofeld, and like he said he was gonna be the new guy to go after Bond. He didn't like die after the big wreck with the plane and the snow chase and all. And then like now we finally get into like, all right, like this really did it. The chain was wrapped around your neck and you just got whipped off a moving train. Like you're probably dead, bro. Like we're not gonna see you again.
Yeah.
But I did like how his character like really mimicked a Jaws. And even once again, the homage is like instead of it being the teeth, he had it on his like thumbnails, so he could like stab into the dude's eyes,
Mm-hmm.
like, and
Well-
then just snap them.
Well, that was quite a bit earlier in the movie, and we didn't talk about it.
Yeah, but like
Um,
he had it there, but he didn't use it against Bond or anything. But I mean, the fact that like once again, unless you knew that character in previous movies, you would just think like you wouldn't see that as a reference. You would just see it as like, oh, that's just what this guy does. Like,
Yeah, it's worth bringing that scene up. It's a good scene.
What's our introduction to Blofeld?
Yeah.
It's Bond sneaks into an organizational meeting, essentially by bullying the security guard. By the way.
yeah, but the
Yeah,
security,
he has
but,
the ring.
but
Oh, you're right. He does
But
have
he
has
the
a
ring.
Spectre ring.
but once again,
Yeah.
the guard was gonna let him in anyway.
Yeah.
He has the Spectre ring that he got from
Yeah.
Mr. White.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because like I
Yeah.
said, he just shows like, who the hell do you think I am, or like, who the fuck? Like he had
Yeah.
some
Is that
smart
right? He
ass
got it
comment.
from Mr. White?
No.
No, he got,
it from the dude on
Oh,
the
he got it from
helicopter at the day. Of
Ski
the
yeah, he
dead.
got it for the dude in Mexico City. Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy who M said you got to kill him.
Yeah.
So Skiara or whatever.
Yeah. So he goes in and he's like, kind of staying in the shadows and like trying to figure out what's going on. Well, there's clearly a large meeting going on of you assume important people, but then there's a whole bunch of people on balconies around the important people, and it's very dark. And then a very, very important person comes in, which seems to, correct me if I'm wrong, scare the shit out of everybody in the room.
This
Yeah.
man is definitely in charge. Yeah.
Yes. And he doesn't even speak out loud. He speaks to somebody else, and that person speaks for him. And then you see Batista come in the scene that Tom has just mentioned, where they're talking to a guy about,
What happened in Mexico?
essentially about Bond, essentially what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And then Batista just comes in kind of out of nowhere and is like, nope, we're, well, no,
Basically, I'm the assassin that you need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
To prove it, I'm going to kill this
'cause they
guy
have-
who was going to go kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And they
But he doesn't
introduce-
talk though. How does it get portrayed? I'm trying to think because
At the
Hanks doesn't
table.
talk.
No.
Yeah, at the table you have the
He
guy
just-
who says, I'll go do it.
yeah,
And then Blofeld basically says,
Do we
well,
have any
if
contenders?
anybody else wants to contend.
Yeah, do we have any
Yeah.
contenders?
and then
Yes.
he walked in, looked at him, and just bah. Like,
Yeah.
just-
Yeah.
And just kills him right. Well, he doesn't kill him. You're right. He doesn't kill him. He just gouges out his eyes and throws him on the floor.
he
He
snaps
snapped his neck, though.
Yeah,
Oh, he does snap his
yeah.
neck. Yeah,
Because
because
that
was
Blofeld
probably a
because
kindness.
Blofeld references it later
Yeah.
because he talks about like the beauty of it or whatever. Like Hanks takes his eyes out and as a torture and like, but he's still alive and blah blah blah. But he puts him out of his misery. I can't remember how exactly he describes it, but it's something along those lines. Blofeld talks about it later in the movie. But yes, and then Blofeld just looks up on the balcony and is like, "Isn't that right, James?" And just looks at Bond, and then Bond has to escape. But Hanks chases him, and I must say, the most worthless car chase scene in any movie I've ever watched.
You can't have a car chase scene through Rome. The streets are this wide.
Yeah. Well,
So supercar chases down the streets of Rome, not a thing.
not only that, but they do nothing. What is the point of the car chase scene? They never touch each other. Like they don't ram cars. At certain points,
They're drifting
Hanks
in Rome.
Hanks
Alex.
pulls up beside Bond and they just stare at each other while Bond talks on the phone. Like there is no point to the chase. Like what is Hanks trying to accomplish? Is he trying to stop Bond? Is he trying to catch Bond? Is he trying to, kill Bond? Like what is he trying? He doesn't do anything.
No, that was a big waste of $500,000.
Yeah, like I didn't get it.
It was
Like
sad to see that car go in the water.
it was.
Like,
Yeah.
that's-
I mean, there were aspects of it that I liked. But
Yeah.
generally speaking.
Like the tour of Rome. I mean, that
Yeah.
was nice.
No,
I liked the cars kind of up on that embankment, down by the river
the
or
canal
whatever
and
it was.
all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the canal.
I-
And there were aspects of it that were okay, but overall,
Yeah,
not
there
a
was no
great chase
point.
scene.
I'm not saying that it wasn't visually appeasing, especially at times, because you got to see two really nice cars drive really fast and, like you said, go up on an embankment. He pushes that other car at one point, like stuff like that. That's kind of visually appeasing, but the chase in itself doesn't have a point.
Yeah, there's no point.
Well, I mean, I think you're supposed to be led to believe that if Batista catches him or if Hinks caught him, he would kill him.
Okay, yes, but he catches up to Bond multiple times. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't ram him, doesn't shoot at his car, nothing. It's just, I'm just driving beside you now.
No, but
Like,
once again, I
It's
mean,
one of them stalkery psychopath kind of situations, maybe.
yeah, like, I mean,
I got you, Bond.
who knows? Like I said,
I'll see
I
you
just think
later.
of it as like,
So it is correct, and I took it this way that, and it is cool because Bond uses the ejector seat,
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
ejector to get out. Hinks thinks that he went down with the car, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Because that was when he lit Hinks's windshield on fire.
yeah, he did the
And he
flamethrower,
couldn't see at that point.
But once again, another Roger Moore thing, like do the
It felt
parachute.
very Roger Moore, and
Yeah.
those are the things I
Like,
loved most about this
That's
movie.
like that because that was once again he came down from a parachute and landed right in front of that like guy on the street. Like,
Yeah, and he walked by and basically said like "Good evening."
Yeah, like-
and it was actually charming.
yeah, once again, it was
So,
a little
yeah.
one-liner to where like that was a Bond moment right there.
Yes.
Like that's like I said, like the like he adapted a lot of those like callbacks that we're talking about. I think in this one really well. Like I do like this Craig Bond.
He was a little more charming than usual.
Yeah.
Yep.
But to return, I guess, to where we were before we drew back to this Blofeld introduction, then Bond and Swan end up at that, I don't know, pickup point.
Yeah.
In the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere, where the rundown building.
Yeah.
And they sit there for what seems like a very long time.
Yeah. I was getting dehydrated watching them.
Right? And then they get picked up and taken to Blofeld's compound, which is like inside a crater.
Yeah. Well, and they explain it. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And then the thing that came across to me the most during all of this is, wow, Blofeld sees Bond as like no threat whatsoever.
But dude, like, but that's what I liked about this because the treatment he got is the treatment that we seen the Bonds always get in the older movies.
Yeah.
Like you show up and like you have a waiter be like your gun, sir. And it's like
Right.
you give it up and you play the role of guest.
It's very Doctor No.
Yeah, like I said, and
that's a
it's
good way to
like-
put it. Yeah.
Like it is. You show up, they offer you. They even offered him drinks and all that, like a tour of the compound. They gave him like you're gonna wear this, like in past movies where they laid out the dresses for the women and all that. Like like this movie was just such an homage to all the others. Like I really, but I like that presentation because, like you said, it is the same in all the others. Like I'm gonna sit down and have a meal with my enemy, then I may torture and kill him if I don't like what he has to say.
Oh, no, I wasn't bashing it. I was just saying Blofeld does not see Bond as a threat. He's
no.
like, I've got all the power in the situation.
But-
You came to me. I don't have any problems killing or disposing of you at any moment.
Well, they show that because like when he does start showing the footage of like the girl's dad going to off himself, like Bond took one step too many and gets kneecapped.
Yeah.
Like it's like, yeah, like dude, like what are you doing here? Like these people just stood up awkwardly because he turned a light off or whatever. Like it's like these are very organized people. Like
Yeah, I would agree. And there is like a I don't know, a cat and mouse game between Blofeld and Bond through all of this. But at no point do you think Bond is getting the better of Blofeld in those scenes.
well,
No.
because it's one of those where like Bond's at the disadvantage because he doesn't know who Blofeld really is until when he's in the chair being tortured.
Yeah.
Like I said, and because of what? Because the name is he took his mother's maiden name, isn't that what he did?
I don't remember how he came up with Blofeld.
Yes, it was his mother's
Yeah,
side of the family.
I think that
and that's actually even a callback to Majesty's with all of the Blofeld. Remember, he was concerned about his family
Yeah.
crest and all of
Oh,
that.
yeah.
that is. Yeah, I didn't even think about
Yeah.
that one. That was a good call, Bear. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
So, yeah, the Blofeld thing was still weird. It's another, like even there though, it's like a presentation almost as if like Bond has no recognition of this man or understanding. It's done very oddly.
I think what well throughout the movies with that part of his character, I think they're trying to highlight like, hey, like throughout your life you actually hurt people and not meant to in some way, and now like this is your way of punishment for that in some way or to atone for it. Like it's like I said, it makes no logical sense because it's the other person's issue and everything. Like Bond was just an orphan taken in by somebody who showed him kindness.
Right.
But
right.
it's like you interpreted the kindness as like overstepping boundaries and like taking your father away from
Right.
you and all. It's
I have daddy issues.
yeah, but it's no different than old boy who had mommy issues and everything and wanted the
Oh,
old
yeah.
M to off himself. It's like it's the same drum that's being beat through this series, but I mean it's all just one long character development is what it is. Like if you look at the damn thing, the way it flows and all that from start to finish. But I mean, I think that's why like the other ones you couldn't put those little like old James Bond esque things in there until you have so much development where like even from the start, like he said, you have all your main characters. You do have like your developed Bond, you have your aged M in the role, you have the Money Penny, you have your Q, like you have the James Bond movie now. It was as if the others were just like prequels to what this is. And it's almost like this should have been a standalone in a sense. But I mean, like but even so, like I said, I like how he even had the little story about like the way the cuckoo and everything, like kept throwing that out there. So, but and even the torture scene itself and everything when he had the watch, like I thought that was clever because then that's like once again callbacks to how many times has just the simple watch been the thing to save him in so many movies and all that.
Yeah.
Well, I did not mind the torture scene because
No.
I will say this: that did look torturous. Like that would not have been. I mean, forget the like what it's doing to your brain. Like
Yeah.
just the needle going through your head would be like torture in itself.
Well, I'd say just well, first off, that's a very strong needle to go through bone, just poking. So
Yeah.
there's that issue and all that. But then like
Well, I don't think it does. Doesn't it spin?
yeah, it
Like
drills.
yeah, it's like a drill.
Like,
It drills
like
through
you
your
said,
skull.
You gotta
like,
think about like it would almost be like donating bone marrow. How
Yeah,
they
like-
do that to you. So it's like
I've had my bones drilled into before.
Have you?
It's not pleasant.
I bet. That sounds awful.
Just once. Yeah, not pleasant. Yeah, that was
had a lot of jokes there, Barry. Be nice. Just
that was an interesting scene. That's quite unexpected for a torture scene. I mean, the idea that we're going to drill into you. And then at one point, Blofeld comments about like, well, if this hits just wrong or whatever, then you'll lose all of your memories of people or something of that nature.
but that was his goal. Yeah, because that was the idea.
But it didn't come into play.
yeah, he wanted him to.
Teased it, but then of course it
yeah,
didn't happen.
he wanted him to forget Swan,
Right.
Yeah.
but it didn't happen. Now I will say this: after the torture, when Bond, you like Tom said, uses the watch to escape, I felt like the rest of that scene where he's escaping the compound was super anticlimactic and almost boring for an action sequence.
It
The explosion goes off. He does nothing to Blofeld, even though Blofeld's laying right there on the floor in front of him. He takes a guy's gun and then starts shooting guys, runs out of ammo, grabs another guy's gun, shoots all the rest of the guys, gets on a helicopter and leaves.
well, but
Like, it was just like, whoa.
but they show a point to him shooting that gas pipe part that's going to set everything off on fire to where like when he does escape, you see it all going off.
Yeah, I just thought it was just kind of like blah, as a like
Yeah.
this is a face off between Bond and Blofeld.
But I
Like
think,
it should be like
but I think,
huge and crazy.
but that's the most realistic way you're not gonna be able to do it old school where it's one man with the Walter killing an entire army that's that regiment.
Well, no, I don't care that he used a machine gun. I don't
it's-
care about that. But
but
I'm just
I
saying,
mean-
like it was. He literally like stood by a pillar and was just like everybody ran out in the open. Nobody hid and tried to shoot back. It was just everybody ran out in the middle of the open. He just shot every single one of them. Got a new gun, shot every single one of them, and then got on a helicopter and left. And I was like,
just like in the that little hollow island in Japan where everybody was out in the open got shot.
Yeah.
Like it's same thing. Like same thing.
so yeah. I don't know. I just felt like that face off was anticlimactic, especially since they've been building Blofeld up so much over the course of this movie. And he just takes out like his whole compound in like 30 seconds.
Almost everything. And I'm not saying I don't like it, but almost everything that was basically Bond Blofeld felt off. It felt like it didn't feel like big enough or important enough ever, or Blofeld didn't seem like he was, devious enough or something. I don't know. Just that whole dynamic felt like it could have been more. or different. I
It
don't
it
know.
all hinged on you buying into the whole premise of him having daddy issues was the thing. Like that was it. If you can buy into the premise that like he just holds that much of a grudge against James about that, that like, because yeah, I think he's doing Spectre regardless. It's just the fact that James became an agent and is after him is just kind of like, oh, like I guess now I can really fuck with you and everything, and it's just there and all that. So I mean, if you buy into that part of it, it's a little bit easier palatable. But like I said, just because the past, like it's a new storyline that's introduced, and if you don't buy into this arc, it just doesn't fit. Like that's all. Because like I said, it's not in the old one. Like it's yeah, like you said, Blofeld has his own family issues, but in no way are him and Bond
Yeah.
tied
I don't know
in.
where that came from.
Like I said, I think they were just trying to. I don't know. They were just trying to make it different, and
Do something
Yeah.
new.
yeah, like I said, it just landed clunky.
But the one thing that did come from this scene is that's how Blofeld gets his scar.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
like that was like because that did bother me when you see like the character when they first like when he leans into the light when he's at the table and see him, and then everything's like the rest of the movie is like, how are you gonna get the scar? How are you gonna, or even like, are they gonna give it to you? Like the first time I seen it, I was like, they gotta give it to him, like something, even if it's like a cheek scar or some shit, like. But no, yeah, I like how they at least gave us that though with him.
So then Bond and Swan end up leaving because they blew the place up, and they end up at MI6, right? They go to MI6. No, they meet M in a secret
Safe house.
safe house
Yeah.
because somebody we've barely mentioned so far, C, has essentially taken over MI6
Yeah.
and is like getting ready to like hand over all the intelligence agencies in the world to Blofeld.
Yeah, he's working with Spectre, obviously.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's been advocating to shut down the Double O program, and I think he was successful.
He was
ultimately.
successful, yeah.
And that was at least in part Bond's fault. You
Yeah,
know, I
the
guess.
Mexico incident sparked it and all.
So of course, M he understands that you need human resources, not like not human resources like at the office, but you need human sources out there, and you can't just rely solely on whatever the cameras and listening in, whatever the word is, I can't think of it.
Yeah, more like an espionage type, like.
Yeah.
But even so, I just took it as they were just taking out competition, just more of a reach for Spectre. That's why
Well, they're
I like
creating a surveillance state.
Yeah, that's what,
ultimately.
and that's what it is. To where like they're just taking Spectre mainstream is all. Like we're
a
just
governmental surveillance state and potentially a global surveillance state, and Spectre gets to utilize it as well.
Yeah.
So it's not good. Yeah.
And then everything goes to hell in a handbasket when they decide to take. What are they trying to do? What are they going to MI6 for? M and Bond are going to MI6. What are they going there for? Are they just going there to get C?
I think that's what it was. They was trying to. God damn it.
And then a bunch of agents overtake them.
Yeah.
And
because they had a big plan. It was like a 4-person plan, and they all had to set up at the safe house, and everybody. But I can't remember how they had it set up.
M intended for C to basically get arrested.
Yes.
And that was the play.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly what it was supposed to look like, but that was the plan.
Yeah, but then like I said, then they got T-boned in that tunnel and all that.
Yeah.
And they got taken. Other ones backed out, and then it was just Bond like trying to break into the old MI6 to get old girl at the same time while M is fighting that turd and everything in his office.
And then I got a note here, and M was talking to C, and I guess he said something about I know what C stands for, and I was really wanting him to say cunt, but he didn't say cunt. He said careless, and I'm like, yeah.
I was like, well, both would be very British, but I mean, I was like, yeah, you are the one in charge, so you had the proper language.
Yeah,
Bond would have said cunt.
Yeah.
Just like
Yes, he would.
These guys insulting each other. I think M stood for moron, according to C.
Yeah.
And C, of course, did stand for careless because his gun wasn't loaded.
Yep.
Yeah. I've always wondered, because I've seen this in in this movie, of course, I've seen it in other movies, and I'm not a gun guy. Can you tell the difference in the weight of a gun if there's bullets in it or not?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I can show you after we're done podcasting, Barry.
Right.
But and then it's just one giant like suspenseful action sequence from here. The rest of the movie, like Bond's trying to save Swan. There's explosives rigged to all the building. Blofeld's flying around in a helicopter. M and Q are trying to defeat C on the computer. Like it's just this big, like intense goings on all at the same time. And Bond obviously ends up saving Swan, and Q ends up defeating C. But then Blofeld is getting away in his helicopter.
Briefly.
Yeah, that's what it appears when those two things happen.
Yeah, then Bond and old girl are in that boat because that's how they escape. Like the old MI6 when it gets blown up and whatnot and collapses.
Yep.
And then he's. I just think it's funny that he takes him out with a handgun. Like that was one that got me and all that because he's just firing away. You just see Blofeld just chilling there, and that to me was anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Like, if you really want to say to her, like, because there was no fight that was put up, like. You didn't even like try to fire back or anything and all that. Even when he recognized they were being shot at, it was like the next one got him. It went down, and then you're just crawling, and I'm like, nah, we're taking you in. Like,
Yeah, it played out weird. Like, and I understand it's a movie and you suspend your disbelief and all that stuff, but like, can someone please go arrest this man? It's like, how long are we gonna let him crawl?
Somebody
go
forever.
with it.
It was forever, and then Bond's the one that walks up to him at first, and Bond pulls his gun out like he's going to execute him, and then Bond looks up and sees the love of his life. This part really irritates me, to be honest with you. Sees the love of his life, and he's realized he's in love with Madeline Swan, and decides, nope, I'm not doing it, and walks away. And then M just stands there and stares for the longest time, and then finally walks up and arrests Blofeld as Bond and Madeline leave, and he's quitting MI6 and because he's in love again. I mean, it's the third time we've seen this happen.
Yeah.
Twice in the Craig series.
Yeah.
Yes, very fickle.
Like, how many times over the course of some years can you fall in love and quit your job because you're in love with a woman?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a soft play, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the first two times it didn't work out for you.
no.
Yeah. That I don't mind a love story that
No, I mean, it is what it is.
But yeah, the whole like, and I guess maybe given what his job is, you got to find something different to do. But yeah, that whole scene did bug me. And it sounds like it bugged you guys too. Like Bond, just lazy when it came to Blofeld at that point. And M even was lazy about it.
Yeah.
Like, what are you guys just going to hang out here until you decide you might bother arresting this guy? It was very weird.
There's too much politics and arrogance going on the whole time.
Well, really, if it would have ended the series, I don't think I would have cared. But knowing that there's another one after this, like I haven't seen it, so I don't know what I'm getting into.
Uh-oh.
Like, yeah. So it's one of those things that like I feel like if it would have ended on this note, it's fine. But like you said, he's obviously coming back from this. Like, 'cause there's another movie and all that. So like if you would have just ended the Craig series on that note, I could have stomached it. Because then it would have actually been done. You'll give me a new Bond, and it's this guy's series now. And like the Craig series would have just been wrapped up in a weird little bow. Like,
well, I mean, I feel like moving on with this continued storyline, not knowing what happens in the next movie, is weird for multiple reasons. First off, like you said, it's kind of interestingly enough in a place where you could wrap it up. But second off, if he has defeated Blofeld, which what this movie makes you think at least, if he has defeated Blofeld, where's there to go after Blofeld? From what they show you, Spectre is like running the entire world.
Yeah.
So like, where do you go from Blofeld to make the next movie worth coming back for another movie?
I mean, once again, like I'm not so worried about that part because we've seen so many just one-off harebrained just like nonsense criminals and all that trying to take over the world. Like I said, we didn't know the first few movies were all Spectre agents and they were just all funded by Spectre doing their own thing. Like,
No, I'm not saying
but that's
we
what I mean.
haven't seen that, but I'm
But
saying like
the door's wide open for other characters. It could be anybody. That part I don't care about. I care about is like you said, we're still beating that same drum in the Craig series now for like what, a third time if it happens. Where like if this broad gets killed and all that, and he goes on a rampage in this next one and all, like it's like I said, what are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
and why? I guess why and all that.
well, I mean, either she gets killed or she end up being a bad guy, like like all these things that we've already seen happen. You know, I don't want to see them again.
Just like I said, give me a different take because that's the thing is like I said, if it ended now, I would be okay. Because like I said, you see him, he rides off to the sunset with his girl and all that. And, like M almost like looks at him as a mature agent because yeah, you didn't do like the unethical thing we'll say and just like execute the guy down. You could have taken him in like the book says and everything, and that's what M does. So like it ends on a moral high note. And but I think it's like I said, where do you go from there then with the series and all that, and then how does it end from there?
Well, like M said, I guess towards more of the beginning of the movie, at sea, you need somebody to either pull or not pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And I guess that was the full circle phrase of the whole movie.
I agree. I was going to go there
Yeah.
next. Yeah, he talks about how it's just as important to have somebody that knows when not to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
So once again, a good callback. Like I said, it wrapped up well enough, but like I said, I would like it to end there. Like we'll see what they do with it, but I would be okay with it if that's where Craig ended his series.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most
Because like I
definitely.
said, looking back on it from here with it, knowing what we've seen, not bad. Like it's like I have a better take on it now, and like I said, I like the flow from start to finish. Like I said, a little clunky here and there, but I can stomach it if that's how it ends.
Fair enough. Well, does anybody else have anything they want to talk about before we move on?
No, I think we got it pretty good.
All right, fair enough. Well, I think that will end our movie discussion and move us into our rankings. And first off, we will be doing body count. And in this movie, he has a body count of 2.
So that's going to be what, 61?
I don't know. I can't see it.
Give me a second.
I have no idea what the total count is.
Yeah.
Well, that just added to 2.
Yep,
So.
61 and 25 movies. So we're still above the 2 per movie, but we're not to the 3. So yes. And then that'll move us into our Bond girl rankings.
Yeah.
And now we have an interesting discussion to have, gentlemen, before we do this. Madeline is the Bond girl for this movie and the next movie. So do we wait and rank her after the next movie? And only have 25 girls? Or do we rank her twice?
Do we? I would only want to rank her once.
I agree.
To be honest, I don't know how far apart these movies were filmed, so I kind of want to watch the next one to see if they do anything different with her look, if I could. Because like I said, I just don't know. Like, do we know what the time frame is and everything? Like, because there's usually a big gap between Bond movies.
I mean, there's a year gap as far as like real life, but there's not a real big gap between in movie time.
Okay.
But yeah, I think if we rank her once, it should be after the next movie, not after this one.
Oh yeah,
personally.
Yeah, then
And especially since we're only, ranking off looks, we only need to rank her off looks one time.
That's right.
That's fair.
Well, if you're only ranking her off looks, then just do it now.
Well, I mean, she may get, a little better looking in the next one. You never know.
Or you said there may be a scene that's a little bit more of a
Yeah, maybe she got one of them. Maybe she got one of them BBLs done or something.
Well, I will say I'm fine with waiting until after the next movie because I will need to know her full character arc. Apparently,
Well, I just don't want you. Yeah, that makes sense for you. But the other thing for me is, I would like there to be that portion in our last episode.
Yeah,
I mean, it'll be our last Bond episode next week.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
Right.
like, let's rank her next week. I feel like
Sure.
it's a good
Okay.
call.
Roger
Maybe we
that.
shouldn't have had this conversation in the middle of an episode, but I feel
Yeah,
like
fuck it.
it's all right.
Short.
Listeners can deal with it.
Yeah, I think they'll be all right with it.
Yeah.
So that leads us into the final ranking, which is the movie itself.
He?
So in normal fashion, I skip Tom, and I go to Barry. Barry, where would you like to rank Spectre 1 through 25?
Yeah, it was sure enjoyable. I enjoyed it as I watched it. Some stuff made me kind of raise an eyebrow or scratch my head at times. It's middle of the pack though. I'll throw it somewhere around, I think 14 seems like a fair number.
14. Definitely not there for me.
All right, Ray, where you want to go?
I'll put it at, I think I'll put it at 17.
17.
Yeah.
Well, I personally was going to go 13. So 13, 14, 17. We're all in the same ballpark there so far. Tom, now that you've had some time to think, where do you think you should put it?
Yeah, I was around 14, 15 with Barry, to be honest.
All right, so we're looking at The Spy Who Loved Me, Living Daylights, For Your Eyes Only, Live and Let Die, and Octopussy are the movies that fall in the 13 to 17 range.
Whole lot of Roger Moore there.
There is a lot of Roger Moore there, and Dalton is in there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can certainly move on from 14 to in either direction. So
Well, Ray, why? You seem to have a strong feeling about it. So why the strong feeling about 17?
I mean, as I go down in that bottom rank here, it's better than Moonraker, better than Majesty's Diamonds, Die Another Day, better than Man with the Golden Gun, World Is Not Enough, Quantum of Solace. You could probably split hairs with that one, and I don't know. I was never real big on Octopussy.
Well, I'm going to agree with you on most of what you just said. I think it is better than those bottom movies. Obviously, I put it higher than that. I don't know that there's much of a. I think Quantum is the worst movie of the Craig movies by far. I was not a big fan of Quantum, so I would say this movie is much better than Quantum.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of Octopussy either, so I would definitely put it ahead of Octopussy. So why behind Live and Let Die or For Your Eyes Only in those movies?
I don't, because those are two Moore ones, right?
Yeah,
That's probably why.
you just like Moore better than Craig.
I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of tough because there's a part of me that, I mean, I really don't like some of the Moore movies, but I feel like those are probably the better two out of that second row, and I'm not going to jump over Living Daylights because I think the Dalton movies are way better than Spectre. So, I mean, I just threw it at 17.
Okay, so you're saying you're pretty much unwilling to go.
I mean,
14.
if we can make a consensus at maybe 15, I'm down for that.
I would be comfortable at 15.
Yeah.
If everybody else was cool with 15, after hearing what Ray had to say.
yeah, certainly.
That was my number.
Okay.
All right, so we're going.
Yeah,
So we're cool with 15. Sure.
Yeah.
right.
Ray's my best advocate.
So Spectre
Okay.
at 15,
Spectre 15.
which will put it behind Living Daylights and ahead of For Your Eyes Only. And 15 out of 25 movies. So not a bad place to be with only one movie left. So at the worst, this movie will be 16. And at its best, it'll be 15, obviously. So everybody, we only have one Bond movie left. No Time to Die. So we're gonna take this time to let you know what we're gonna do next. After we finish James Bond next week, we will have a recap episode where we talk about the Bond series as a whole and our feelings, our thoughts, everything, just wrapping up the whole series. And after that, we are going to move on and do Rocky. So they're not going to be 26 movies, only 6. A little bit shorter of a series, which may be refreshing. I personally think it may be a little refreshing to a shorter series this time around. Bond was a a lot of legwork for our first series, our first season.
Yeah, Rocky will probably be like your high school crush or girlfriend, in and out, you know.
But yes, we will be moving on to Rocky. A lot of the same format. There will be B-sides. There will be rankings. There will be movie discussion, and I'm sure there'll be arguments. Nothing going to change, really, is other than the actual movies we'll be going over. Anybody else have anything to add about moving forward before we move on?
No, I just thought I'm looking forward to it and all.
Adrian.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for tuning in to this Spectre episode, and join us next week for our No Time to Die episode. And thanks for listening to Blockbuster Bums.